The Chicago Bulls' first preseason game is now in the books, and we now have the reactions from the players and the coaches from that game. We're going to talk a little bit about that, get a little bit into a deeper level, and look at the individual performances from some players. Also, we have an update on why exactly Lonzo Ball missed the first preseason game, and apparently it isn't because of his knee. We're going to talk about all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. And so I want to start off, of course, with the Chicago Bulls preseason game. Now, we did have a post-game show that's live on the channel after every single game. Make sure you guys stay subscribed to get those. If you're on the podcast side, go over to the YouTube side. The live show is a little bit different. But with that said, some of the prevailing thoughts that come out of that, especially with the starting lineup, is that the defense is going to be an issue, right? And that's not anything that's a surprise to anybody who's been paying attention. I do know that there were some Bulls fans that thought that the defense may not be as bad as what some of the other Bulls fans were thinking. But I always go to Billy Donovan and the fact of him as the coach of this team and how much he's voiced his concern over the defensive side of the ball for this Bulls team. And that did rear its ugly head in this game. I think when you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers getting out to an 8-0 start against the Chicago Bulls, the Bulls couldn't put up points, but it just was real easy for the Cavs to get to the rim. I think that happened throughout the game. Now, I do think the defense was a little bit better at certain portions of the game, and over the second half of the game, the Cleveland Cavaliers didn't play their starters as much, but it is what it is. Now, Billy Donovan did say this after the game: poor defense and also the offensive part too. The other thing we talked about even before going out was that we wanted to make sure the ball was inbound quickly and we can get up the floor, attack, kind of establish that. In the first two possessions on a made basket, we got our point guard, Josh Giddey. Make sure that everybody says that. The point guard, Josh Giddey, for people who are still thinking Josh Giddey wasn't going to play point guard. I don't even know why we still have to address that. He was the point guard. He got announced as the point guard. You know who's starting point guard? Josh Giddey. You know he's not starting at point forward or small forward like people try to make it? Josh Giddey didn't do that. He was the point guard. But with that said, inbounding it, and we're slow coming down the floor, letting them get set, and then some of the physicality at the basket, like those are the things we worked on, especially talking about it before the game. And so physicality, defense, and those type of things are going to be a struggle for this Bulls team. Now, again, this is one preseason game. You could clearly tell that the Bulls starting lineup wasn't in the rhythm that you really hope to think from this team. And again, even with Josh Giddey and his performance, right, which, like I said in the postgame show, it wasn't good, it wasn't bad, right? But for a player that was out for a couple of months because of an ankle injury, it makes some sense why it didn't seem like Josh Giddey quite had his rhythm at the beginning of the game. Now, I do think he found it in the second half of that game, and he didn't end up playing a lot of minutes in the second half, but I do think he eventually found that. And so, there's some signs that even some of these concerns with the Chicago Bulls starting lineup, could end up, being better, right? I won't say that they correct themselves all of a sudden, but I do think that they can be better than what they look like in this game in certain aspects, right? So, the defense is going to be a thing that's going to be a problem. That just is what it is. This defense is going to be an issue for this team. But outside of that, right, like the offense, even on that offensive side where I thought that the Bulls would be kind of more crisp, they weren't. And, that can go into a rhythm thing. They didn't move as fast as I expected either. But those things can come with time, right? And so I get it. It's one preseason game. And like I keep going back to, I don't want to kind of overanalyze one preseason game. But, there are some things to look at and some things to say, all right, how's this going to start fixing itself, right? What's going to start correcting itself? And Josh Giddey much better in the second half of this game than the first half. You look at the first half for Josh Giddey, for example, he was 1 for 4 from the field in the first half of the game. Second half from the field, he was much better in this game, 4 for 7. No three-pointers made. He didn't take any three-pointers in the second half, which I think helped with that as well. He had 4 rebounds in the second half of this game, ended up finishing with 7 overall, 9 points. He was also a plus 13 in the second half of this game versus in the first half of the game, he was a negative 16. So, really a tale of two halves for a player like Josh Giddey. Only 7 minutes played, in the second half of this game, and that the starters didn't play a lot in the second half. Not most of the starters, some of them did. Even you got guys like Kobe White who only played 4 minutes in the second half of this game. He scored 6 points. Vooch only 6 minutes in the second half of this game. He scored 6 points. So there are some signs of them working it out, and that is why getting live game reps is really important for basketball players, because if you get those live game reps, that's really what kind of dictates. A player like Io didn't play any in the second half of this game, right? So those type of things. So, be on the lookout for those things to start improving. But of course, like I said, off ball with Josh Giddey and Kobe White kind of concerned me a little bit. But again, they're working out those kinks. And like I said, over on Locked On Bulls, for example, like you got to figure out how to get Josh Giddey because Kobe's going to have his time handling the ball, right? I think that's evident. We saw it in this game. That's going to happen. And so when Kobe is doing the ball handling, you have to find a way to keep Josh Giddey involved in the offense. So whether that's having him slash, whether it's having him come off picks, Quentin from Let's Talk Bulls made a great call out saying that, all right, maybe you use Josh Giddey as the pick man, right, for Kobe White. You do some pick and rolls with Kobe White and Josh Giddey, because at that point, you got to trust Josh Giddey's ability to slash to the rim, those type of things. So those things are things that the coaching staff hopefully is looking at, and they can start figuring out in the second, for this team as it goes forward. But this is what preseason is for. It's to work out kinks, right? In training camp, you can only simulate so much, right? Because you have a limited amount of guys. That's the point of playing against other teams. Other teams are going to throw you different looks. They're going to throw a lot of looks at you that you can't simulate in practice. And so now the Bulls having this type of data from one game, they can go back and look at it, right? So that's something to get into. We'll get into individual player performances here in a second, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. So those are definitely some concern signs in this. Outside of that, right, some things that went really good for this Bulls team is Ayo Dosunmu will set the tone defensively. I think that you can tell that Ayo Dosunmu, he will set a tone defensively for this team. He is going to be probably the biggest communicator on that defensive side of the ball for the Bulls. That's kind of evident. No minutes played in the second half of this game. That kind of is what it comes down to. But listen, Ayo made an impact. And when Ayo was out in the game, you absolutely felt his presence on the floor. And so, Dosunmu, when he came in, getting a fast break, right? He got a dunk, then a three-pointer right away. He's gonna thrive in that six-man role. And, we'll see. And I've said it before. Ayo Dosunmu could be the glue guy for this team, very much so. He could be what makes those weirder kind of lineups and those three-guard lineups work because of his versatility, both defensively and offensively. And so in one game, to have only 16 minutes, all in the first half, 10 points, 1 assist, 1 steal, and the way that he communicated on that defensive side of the ball, those are all really good things from him. Next player I want to talk about is Jalen Smith. 17 minutes, 11 points, 10 rebounds, 1 block. And I tell you what, right, when you're looking at the difference between Jalen Smith and Nikola Vucevic out there, for example, the big difference is that Jalen Smith is just the type of player that fits in what we're trying to do offensively. Does it bring about some defensive concerns? Absolutely, right? Like, Jalen Smith isn't a great defender, but I think when you look at what he is, the fact that when he got in there, the way that he runs up and down that court as a big man adds a dynamic to that offense that you need. Getting an alley-oop from Ayo Dosunmu, right? Those type of things. He looked like the type of center that will fit in what the Chicago Bulls are doing. Again, let me go over this production. 17 minutes, 11 points, 10 rebounds, 1 block. And we talked about this, that Jalen Smith has always been a really good per-minute production guy in his time in the NBA, but he's going to have theoretically more minutes with this Chicago Bulls team, and so it seems like it's really fitting him. Now, his three-point shot didn't look good. He went 0 for 4 from three-point line. I'm glad that he's taking them, but I don't want us to do what we did to Vooch initially. I don't want Jalen Smith's three-point shooting to be a big part of how we try to get three-point shots. I want it to be a compliment. Of course, if you catch him in a mismatch, in a pick and pop, those type of things, I want him to take the three-point shot naturally, and I'm not saying he didn't do that here. Again, preseason is to work out some things, but that's just something to look out for. But Ayo Dosunmu and Jalen Smith, they're going to be two really big, important players on the Chicago Bulls team. Then you got to look at Kobe White. 25 minutes, 21 points, 3 assists, and what Kobe White was able to do. And it started off a little bit slow for Kobe White in this game. And, that's something you could say for a lot of these Bulls players. Again, we didn't really have the best rhythm to come out there. Look at the first half for Kobe White. He played 20 minutes in the first half. He went 5 of 13 from the field, 1 of 5 from three-point line, but he got to the free throw line 6 times in just the first half. That's really big for Kobe White. He'll end up playing 4 minutes in the second half of this game. He did go 2 for 2 in that time, nothing at the free throw line, but overall, like, Kobe White really kind of dictated the pace and things out there. 7 to 15 from the field, 46%. I'll take that. 3 for 7 for 42% from the three-point line. Considering the Bulls only made 8 three-pointers on the game, we'll take that as well. The 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Kobe White is going to be Kobe White this year. And, that's what you expect from Kobe White. I don't think it's too shocking what Kobe White did out there. He scored, he put up points, and he did it in some really good minutes. And so the points per minute production was really good from a player like Kobe White. And I think Kobe, so far through one game, Kobe White's been what you expected. And like again, the time with him and Josh Giddey out there on the court, they definitely got some kinks to work out. But I got some faith that they're going to work those kinks out, right? Other players, like I talked about Josh Giddey already in this game. I think a much better second half in this game than first half, and that's really good for him. For somebody who was coming off that major ankle injury, that's a really good thing for him. 2 blocks, 7 rebounds, 3 assists from Josh Giddey. Solid game. Like I said, it wasn't a bad game, wasn't a good game. That just comes down to, I know that Josh Giddey can be much better than this, right? And how he looked at times out there definitely left a impression with me, but much better in the second half. And that second half and getting him downhill to try to score a little bit more, going coast to coast on the play as well, really good from Josh Giddey, right? Zach LaVine, 18.7 minutes, 2 assists, 1 steal. Not a lot to take away from Zach LaVine's minutes out there. He kind of just did his thing. It is what it is when it comes down to Zach LaVine and his production on this team. I want to see kind of more on it, and that's just what I'll leave it at with that. Again, not going to have this overall huge opinion on Zach LaVine's time out there. It kind of is what it is. But then one of the negatives, right? And I said this in the post-game show, the stat sheet looks good, right? The stats look good from Nikola Vucevic. 20 minutes, 12 rebounds, 12 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 turnovers from him. He had a positive plus-minus of +2. And so the offense isn't the problem. And this may be why, Nikola Vucevic is going to stay in that starting line. You need a half-court scorer. But I think that you could just see defensively, Nikola Vucevic looks bad. It looks maybe even worse than where it ended last season. Now, again, ramp-up period, all those things that I say apply to Nikola Vucevic as well. Early in preseason, he could just very well not be in rhythm yet. Take that for what you will. But Nikola Vucevic, it was weird with Nikola Vucevic's minutes out there. But again, something that could work out. And then Patrick Williams, 13 minutes played for Patrick Williams. Started off with a turnover from Pat, 2 for 6 from the field, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 4 points. He had a negative plus-minus of -18 in 13 minutes. Again, I don't want to dive too much into it in preseason, but Patrick Williams, we need more, is what I'll leave it at. We need to see more from Patrick Williams over the course of the rest of this preseason. He has to be better. He has to attack more. He has to go those things because of the other players that I'm about to talk about. Listen, if these players are bringing energy, these players, like the young Bulls in the second half of this game, when they basically turned it over to those young guys and you realize the rest of this preseason game is about these young guys, listen here, those guys stepped up hugely for this team. Modest Buzelis, man, and I know this is a guy that everybody's probably waiting for me to talk about. Listen, we got us one in Modest Buzelis, and I get it. It's preseason, overreactions. At this point, I don't care. Modest Buzelis flashed a little bit of everything. If I had to give out player grades in this one, he may be one of the only guys to give an A. That's not typically how I talk about games after the game is giving grades. But listen, Modest Buzelis, 12 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 block, 1 steal. Listen, considering that Modest Buzelis, this was his first ever game, you got to look at Modest Buzelis and what he brought in here. He looked extremely comfortable. He looked even better as an on-ball defender than he did in Summer League. It looks like he may have grown in that way ever. He made plays on both sides of the ball. He did everything. Again, still raw on some aspects, still needs to polish out his game, still absolutely has things that he needs to work on. But the reason why Modest Buzelis was labeled as a steal at number 11, at the end of the day, Modest Buzelis brought so much of what you want to see from Buzelis, and you got to give him credit for that. Just great to see the performance from Modest Buzelis. Great to see him as engaged as what he was and how he operated on that team. Like, this is a guy, we said it, I know, and I understand why some Bulls fans were concerned about if Modest Buzelis was going to get minutes this season, but to me, after watching this game, you can calm all those questions and concerns down. Buzelis is about to play. He's about to make you have to play him. This dude, 21 minutes to do what he did, to make the impact that he did, got to give him much credit for. But second-year man Julian Phillips as well, leading the team in plus-minus for whatever that's worth at +20, 4 for 7 from the field, 4 rebounds in this game, 1 block, only 1 turnover from the big man as well. No fouls from him, which Buzelis had 3 fouls, by the way, and that's going to happen, right? But Julian Phillips with 9 points and what he was able to do defensively, rebounding the energy plays, we've talked about it. This team is going to be a team that is looking for somebody who can give you those energy plays. And Julian Phillips and Dalen Terry, who I'm about to talk about, both gave that for the Bulls. And I tell you what, Julian Phillips is making his case to get minutes for this team. Now, again, as I said a couple of episodes ago, I do think that he will crack the rotation. How meaningfully he cracks the rotation is going to be up to a few different things. But Julian Phillips gave us some really good minutes last night. And Dalen Terry, 19 minutes, only 2 of 5 from the field, 6 points, but he was plus 15, and he did a lot of everything else. The shooting wasn't there for him last night. But the thing that we've talked about with Dalen Terry is if that shot isn't falling, which the form looks a lot better. Let's hopefully he has better shooting games over the rest of preseason. But 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, that's how Dalen Terry can make an impact on this basketball team, is filling in the energy roles for this Bulls team. And we'll see what happens over that course of time as well. I like Dalen Terry. I like the minutes that he gave, and these young guys, Dalen Terry, Buzelis, Julian Phillips, when this game shifted and became about those guys, you saw the game shift for the Chicago Bulls, and that's a big thing in that as well. So, again, these guys did what they needed to do in this preseason game, and we'll take that for what it is. The Bulls got the victory. Some of the back end of the bench play, we didn't see a lot of Erno Batum. 7 minutes from him. Didn't look good in those 7 minutes, just to be frank. I could see why THT played over him. 17 minutes from THT. I caused some controversy in my post-game thoughts on THT. Listen, didn't impress me. But, again, he played better than Erno Batum. And if we're talking about who's going to get that last roster spot, right now, THT may have the edge on that, right? Adama Sanogo, only 2 minutes from him. Wanted to see more. I want to see more from Adama going forward into the preseason. And then, guys that really didn't leave an impression. Chris Duarte played 11 minutes. He was 1 of 6 from the field. He did get 5 rebounds in that time. But, listen, he was out there to shoot. He also got 2 blocks, so give Chris Duarte some props for that. But, offensively, he didn't play within the rhythm of the game, and he just shot. He was out there to shoot. He shot that damn basketball, right? Didn't make anything. But that's really it. Overall, like I said, I'm not going to get hugely concerned over one preseason game. There are some things that if they continue to be trends and if they start that way in the regular season, it's going to be ugly for the Bulls defensively. But other than that, man, I like the energy that the team played with, especially in the second half. Love the way that the young guys stepped up. Kobe was Kobe. Jalen Smith was Jalen Smith and what we expect and what we need from him. And a lot of the other guys were all that as well. But we got to just continue to see it develop and grow over time to see how that's going to turn out and how these guys are going to really kind of work out the kinks. And that's the next thing that we're looking at is how they're going to work out the kinks going forward. So we'll see what happens and when it comes down to for that. But, everybody has aired their concerns. Josh Giddey as well saying for the problem was defense. The Cavs got easy looks, started making them. But the second problem was we were trying to emphasize getting the ball up quick, get up the floor, and didn't do it the first 90 seconds of the game. So, he understands as well. This team has some things that they need to work out. And I trust that they will work it out. Let's see how it goes. But let me know your guys' thoughts. Walking away from the Bulls' first preseason game, what are some positives? What are some negatives? What are some your biggest signs for concern? What are the biggest things that surprised you if you were surprised by anything in a preseason game? Let me know that down below. Now, before we go, I also want to talk about Lonzo Ball. He did not play in the preseason, but it was good to hear that he will play in this preseason. It actually came out right now that he did not play in the preseason, not because of his knee, but because he had a bout of COVID that actually caused him to miss a lot of workouts, and then the team was worried about his strength and his weight. Billy Donovan saying this, and talking to the medical, and even in my conversations with him, I think there's still a period of him getting his strength back. He's probably lost out on working out more than a week. We're going to be cautious with the buildup. I fully anticipate him playing at some point in preseason games, but I think it's going to be based on more practices, load management, and where he's at physically. Right now, the best decision with where he's at is just to continue to try to build him up. I think he's very realistic about where he is physically. We've got to find a way for him to prolong his career where he can show in these amounts of minutes that he can be a productive player. Also, I think he understands, too, from a minute standpoint, that this is not going to be what it was for him in New Orleans or even what it was for him his first year in Chicago. He's got to find a way to try to carve out a really good niche for himself. He's going to have to show he can do it over the course of the season, but some of that may be he doesn't play 82 games. Maybe he plays 65, right? So a really realistic view on where Lonzo Ball is, right? And this should be no surprise. It's what I've been saying for the people who've been saying like, oh, Lonzo Ball could start, Lonzo Ball could really change. It seemed like Billy Donovan's telling you guys, Lonzo's not going to get a lot of minutes, but it's about him being able to carve out in what he can do. He's not going to get the minutes he got in New Orleans. He's not going to get the minutes that he got his first year in Chicago. But it's about when he's on that court, what does he bring? And what does Lonzo bring when he's on that court? He brings basketball IQ, and passing is the thing that he can make an impact for right away. But overall, it's good to hear that Lonzo is going to play in preseason. Great to hear that, actually. That is the most important thing. Get Lonzo on the court. We can figure out the rest later, right? We can figure out how good he looks. We can figure out in what sets we can use him at. We can figure out in how many shots, how many minutes he's going to get, those type of things. But overall, the most important thing is getting Lonzo Ball on the court and him staying healthy. And I love to hear from Billy Donovan is about prolonging his career, because that's really what it's about here when it comes to Lonzo Ball. So overall, I know some people were disappointed about not getting to see Lonzo Ball out there, but overall, I think it's gonna be it's gonna be better, and we're gonna see more of Lonzo than not of Lonzo, in my personal opinion. Now, before we go, the Chicago Bulls play another preseason game. They don't play again until Saturday against the Memphis Grizzlies, and that's going to be an interesting game to watch against the Grizzlies, especially in the Bulls minutes with our starters against their starters. Many Bulls fans will get to see Zach Edey as well. That some people wanted the Bulls to draft Zach Edey. But between now and then, some of the things that I would really love to see the Bulls work on is just their chemistry together, right? Get better in that chemistry, and work on the defensive side of the ball, and maybe look to watch Jalen Smith and how many more minutes he plays with the starters, right? That could be something, as he was a really productive player and kind of fit in more stylistically with what the Bulls wanted to do. So I do think, look out for that. Maybe Jalen Smith plays a little bit more minutes. Maybe the starters overall play less minutes, right? There's a chance of that as well. Preseason can be weird when it comes down to things like that. So we'll see how those things develop for this team as well. But overall, hey, let's get it in the books. Let's continue. The Bulls also, by the way, before I go, they did sign Javon Freeman-Liberty. He's coming back to the Chicago Bulls with the plan to play with the Windy City Bulls. This, in many Bulls fans' mind, is going to be them fixing what they didn't do last year and getting Javon Freeman-Liberty a contract here. Now, the thing is, when it comes down to it, I already know the reaction is going to be more guards. Yes, more guards. It's a Windy City Bulls signing. Him and DJ Stewart are going to actually be, I think, a pretty good backcourt in the Windy City Bulls next year. For those that don't know, I do weekly episodes catching up on what happened in the G League that week. So be on the lookout for that, because I will be dropping those episodes as well once the G League season starts. But that's my time for today, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on Chi-Town Up. No, that's the Bears intro. Bears outro, I should say. Love you guys. Go Bulls. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.